Hi everyone, my name is Brian Hubbard. I'm a sixth year student in Colossatrasse Secondary School in Cantare, County Cork, and I've just finished my higher level history paper. Overall, I think students will be very happy with the paper. It gave a lot of choice throughout. You began section 1 with your document based questions. The case study that came up this year was Sunningdale. It was obviously Coleraine last year, so it was going to be one of three. I can't say anything about them really. They were your classic document based questions, quoting from the text, comparing documents where necessary. And for your longer question, then you to write about why Sunningdale proved so divisive. So I think students wouldn't have had any problems there in answering your DBQ. Section 2, then Ireland. Something to note out of the pursuit of sovereignty and impact of partition question is there's a lot of choice here for students. So there were questions with and or in them. So if you had one part of the question prepared but couldn't write about the second part, you could have wrote about the part you knew. I answered two questions here. I answered the one on Anglo-Irish relations, which I had prepared, so I was very happy to see it. And I also wrote another question which I had prepared on the Eucharistic Congress. But I know it's the third year that the Eucharistic Congress came up, so if you were someone who didn't know or didn't have enough to write about that, you could also have wrote about the promotion of the Irish language, because that question was and or you could have wrote about both. So there's a lot of choice there for students. The question also came up on Northern Ireland and how did it respond, or how did the government respond to challenges it faced, and a question there on Ireland in the 1910s, on Home Rule, World War I, and the 1918 election. So overall, a lot of choice there in Ireland for students. Section 3, then Europe and the wider world. Because I answered 2 out of Ireland, I had to answer 1 here out of the United States and the world, which I had studied. The one I chose to answer, and I was very happy when I saw it, because it was an identical question, I think, to the one that came up in 2019. And it was on how the US achieved a successful moon landing and its significance at home and abroad. The only difference with this question is they changed international and international to home and abroad. So I think it's a question students would have seen before. I remember answering, I think it might have been a Christmas exam on it. So I knew how to answer it, and I think a lot of students would have answered that question as well and have been very happy with it. The other questions in the US, you had one on racial inequality, and you had one on the threat to US security of Korea or the Cuban Missile Crisis. A Vietnam question came up last year. There wasn't one this year. That one was sort of different in that you weren't simply talking about how the conflicts unfolded or the crises, but you had to talk about it in the realm of its threat to US security. The other question then was on either McCarthyism, the military-industrial complex, and the anti-war movement. So you'd write about one or more of them, and it gave you a lot of choice. So I think if there's one word to sum up the paper, it's choice, and I think students have been very happy with it. A classic Leaving Cert history paper. If students were looking possibly for an easier high-level paper, I think this was it. I'm very happy with it. A lot of my classmates were as well. So I think this paper will be very well received by students across the country.